Back in the summer of 2020, I was at home playing video games with a buddy of mine. When I realized I didn't have any booze left, pretty much all I did during the pandemic was drink and play video games. Please don't judge me anyway. I decided to drive to the local gas station just a few minutes away from my house. As I walked into the gas station, I had noticed four very enlarged men, and they were being very loud and obnoxious by the gas pumps. They must have been pretty drunk too, because they were being so rowdy, and two of them soon to be stumbling around their truck. No, this wasn't an abnormal sight, as my town's full of rednecks who drink way too much anyway. I went into the gas station, and I went over to the liquor section, and I'd grab my choice of beverage. As I was grabbing my drink, the men had come in to pay for their gas or whatever they were buying. The cashier was a young, attractive girl. She must have also been new, because I frequent in that gas station. A low 10, I had never seen her there before. As the men were paying for their things, they had started to say very sexual things to the girl. I could tell it was making her uncomfortable. I won't repeat the mass, they're just really not worth saying, but they began asking her what time she got off and which car was hers. I could see that she was starting to shake and she could barely get the change out of the register. I really felt terrible for her, and I then shouted, "Hey, just pay for your things and leave now." My mouth had acted before my brain could process that these men had not only outnumbered me, but they were almost twice my size. I'm a melee, and I'm about 6 feet tall and decently built. But if these men decided not to play nice with me, it stood no chance at all. After I boarded out for them to leave, they all turned and looked at me. It was then that I realized the situation that I just put myself in, and my heart dropped into my stomach. By the pure grace of God, they simply shot a pissed-off glance at me, nodded, and then left. It then approached the counter, asking the young girl if she was okay. She was still shaking, but she said yes. I asked her if she wanted med talk. All the police for her, but she said no and that her manager was in the back. I just said okay, and I paid for my thanks. I looked out the window, and luckily the big rusty truck the men came from was now gone. I did a quick jog to my car, making sure they weren't parked around the corner of the building, and they weren't. I was able to make it home to enjoy some drunken video games with my friends. So fellas, if you were ever in the position to stop sexual harassment, do it. Just make sure you weren't possibly going to get your ass kicked in the process. I'm a 29-year-old female, but at the time of this incident I was 19. It's not the scariest story in the world, but indefinitely terrified me. Me and my now ex-husband were driving home from a friend's place, and we needed to stop Forga since we were running on ETH. The only problem is that since it was really late, around 2 a.m., there weren't too many gas stations open. We had to stop in one of the more rundown stores. There was in a bad area as soon as we pull up to the pump. I noticed a sketchy-looking guy passing in front of the store talking on his cell phone, so when my ex-husband gets out of the car, immediately locked the doors. I continue watching this guy because he's giving off some major bad vibes. And Nissin, as my ex-husband went to the store, the dude makes a beeline straight for our car. I almost pissed my pants when I was a whim walking towards Meso. I lunged over the driver's seat to reach my taser, which was in the door. As soon as I grabbed the taser, I knock on the window, and it turned to see this guy standing there, appearing right in at me with a creepy smile on his faces. So I rolled down my window the teeniest bit and asked me if I can help him turn his phone on. To which I then reply with, "I don't really think you need help with that. I literally just saw you talking on it." He tells me it turned off, and he asked if I can get out and just help him out really fast. Obviously, I told him no, and I told him to get away from me. My video literally tries to yank open my door. I scream, and I hold up the taser right in front of his face, and I start pressing the button down to show him I have a weapon, and that I will him up. Thankfully, he backed away from the car, and my ex-husband came out of the store soon afterwards. I was so terrified that I actually started crying while telling my ex-husband what happened. Of course, he wanted to confront the creep, but by that point he had taken off. We didn't end up calling the police, but we did alert the store clerk just so she knew about the guy. I'm very thankful nothing else bad happened, but things easily could have gotten a lot worse for me. To all the ladies out the real ways, beware of your surroundings, stay safe. I'm an 18-year-old female, and my sister's 21. One day we decided that we wanted to take a weekend trip to Colorado. On a whim, we decided that after I got off work, we would get on the road on the day. We decided to leave. I had worked from 5 a.m. to 5 p.m. So by the time we had started driving, I was pretty tired, but my sister wasn't very comfortable driving tonight, so I said that I would drive the full way there. Wes started driving from Albuquerque, New Mexico. So about 3 hours later, we got to Taos, New Mexico. We decided to take the back roads so that I could pull over to sleep when I felt like I couldn't drive anymore. Once we got tow towels, I decided to start looking for a truck stop so that I can sleep. because it felt like a truck stop would be the safest place for two young girls. We came upon a round truck stop that looked like it might have been abandoned. Since I had already been awake for around 15 hours, I decided that stopping there waste the best option being that I had a broken car window and we're both young. My sister decided she would stay awake while it took a quick nap after getting about as comfortable as you can get in the driver's seat of a compact car. I drifted off to sleep. That's when my sister shook me awake with fear in her voice, telling me we needed to leave as soon as possible. I started my car while then asking what was happening, and that's when my heart then sunk as she poured into a car parked about 15 feet away. At a gas pump, she explained that the car parked with their lights off. Not too long after I leaned my seat back, and they never got out of their cart. They just stared at us the entire time. I was sleeping. The person in the car just stared at us. By the time I was told the story, I was already leaving the parking lot looking for somewhere else to pull over so we could get the GPS started up. Again, as soon as Wes started driving out of that parking lot, the person at the gas pump turned on their car, still with no headlights. After following us for a bit, we pulled into a well-wed parking lot of a 24-hour store. This seemed to have quite a few cars there. I think this made the other driver nervous as they drove right through the parking lot into the night. And we never saw them again. After that, the story may not sound that scary to many out there, but for them, this is probably one of the most terrifying experiences of mine to this day. I have no clue what would have happened if we stayed there any longer, or if we didn't find that 24-hour store. I'm 24 years old, but this happened to me when I was 22. I used to work at a gas station. I never had to work nights though. I just opened whenever I opened. I got to leave at around 4 p.m., which gives me time to go pick up my kids. A daycare one day was a slow day. My manager was in the office, which was super close to the front counter. So if you're sitting in the office, comes in, you can literally take 2 steps to where their register was. Anyways, I was leaning on the counter just talking to my manager when an older gentleman comes inside. I didn't really think anything of it. I disagreed with him, and I went back to talking to my manager. I noticed that he went through the fountain drinks and he started getting something to drink. He then comes back and he was talking about how we normally gets free drinks from here. Now let me give you a backstory about this. Before I started working, there was an older lady who worked there 4 years. Unfortunately though, she found out she had cancer, and it was way too late to get help, and she passed away when he started to explain to me about her. I looked at my manager and she was giving Meth that look, the kind of look that's like, just go ahead and give it to him so he can leave. So I just smiled at him and I told him he could take the drink. I asked my manager who he was, and she then explained Tomathan when she first started working there, which by the way, she's been working there for a year or two, and she told me she only saw him one time. Something about him just really gave her the creeps. I just shrugged it off, and my manager left for the day. I was all by myself except for the cook. I decided to do my usuals, the inventory, stocked cleaning, and also helping some customers out whenever they needed it. Another customer came in and I greeted the man. It was the same man. There was just something about the vibe he gave off and he really sent chills down my spine. We had a little tablet that was close to the kitchen where all the customers can sit down and eat and drink. He decided to sit there and he started talking to me while I was trying to finish up my work before my shift ended. No matter which hour I was going to, it would always follow me. He was making me very uncomfortable, calling me these sweet names when they were really just giving me the creeps. She would get really close to me to the point where I can literally smell alcohol, so I'm assuming that he's a drunk, but yet it was still acting like he wasn't. It was at this point. Then I decided to go to the cooler just to get away from him. While I was stocking up all the drinks, I had heard the door open, so I went around to see who it was, and lo and behold it was him. I told him he wasn't allowed in the cooler and that Harley needed to leave. He apologized, saying that he just wanted to talk. But it did leave the cooler 3:30 p.m. by, and my coworker, who we'll call Ashley, comes inside. When she noticed that this man was following me around the store, she got really annoyed by it. She went up to the man and she actually told him that if he doesn't leave me alone, she wouldn't hesitate to call the police. The look on his face when she said that it was scary. I have never seen anyone screaming cuss someone out in my life like headed. I really don't know how Ashley didn't get scared, but she was literally just standing there with a blank face. Notvin caring he left soon after, and I haven't seen him since. This may not be that scary to a lot of you, but just imagine a creepy man following you around in the store and you have no idea what his true intentions are. I'm really glad that's all he did. It really could have ended up a lot worse. I worked at gas station in my small North Carolina town 10 miles from Charlotte. I was a 39-year-old wife and a mother of 3 daughters. I was a stay-at-home mom and my daughters were all in school, and at the time my family really needed a little extra income. The area was predominantly safe. My hours were 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. My duties were being a cashier, of course, stocking products, cleaning, doing nightly audits, and reading every Dean Koontz novel I could get my hands on. All of this by myself. I should add, the company didn't feel a need for a second person on this shift because it was really slow button weekends, very hectic. I handled this job like a pro. I really love seeing my regulars at night and the morning workers getting their coffee and heading to work. I was at this gas station, which was also a bit of a convenience store, for about a year. I did have the run-of-the-mill meth heads and like their sweets, the homeless looking for free B6 or somewhere to charge their phone. I also had the occasional local police officers that would come in at around 12 to 1 a.m. for free coffee and about their shift on this particular night. I was reading the Dean Koontz novel Intensity. I put the bookmark in because I felt like moving around. I went around the counter to the 5-hour energy shots and I began to organize and stalk. I heard the bell above the door like I had a million times before. I had so many regulars ranging from pizza delivery guys to EMTs. I was setting the case of 5-hour energy shots down to help this customer when I felt something cold and hard against my right shoulder blade. My first instinct was that this was a cruel prank from a regular. It turned around to Cesar when I was then met with a gun pointing at my forehead. It was an African-American guy with a bandana on half of his face. I immediately put my hand soup in shock. I looked around and I saw that there were 3 more guys in different colored bandanas with no gun, but I'm looking nervous and then demanding me to give all the money. I walked around the counter with this guy holding his gun right to my head and telling me, "Hurry up, give me the money open." The register, I said with my hands still in the air and shaking. Yes, of course, here, and I opened up the register for him. The other 4 guys descended on this register, getting all the cash in the register. Suddenly the gunman looked at me, then said this register too. There was a second register that had the bare minimum for the first shift to open up with. I put in my code and I opened their register as well. They cleaned out that one tooth. They then sold the safe underneath the first register, and again the gunman pointed his gun to me temple and also demanded I open the safe. They said in a shaky voice that the safe is on a timer. If you press on button, whether rip before the $10 bills or arrow of quarters, it won't dispense again. For a whole 2 minutes, the guys were all on the safe pressing buttons, while in the meantime I'm praying out loud for God to spare me because I have a husband and children that need me. I kept frantically saying this prayer. And the guys were all frustrated that the safe wasn't giving them what they wanted. I heard one of the guys saying, "One of you shut that up," and another said, "Just shoot her already. We already have what we need." Right at that statement, I could literally feel I was about to lose my bladder and pee all over myself, even though I was scared out of my mind. I was also mad as hell that this was possibly going to be where I ended up. I held an imp and I just watched as they started to steal as many cigarettes, wraps, and Black and Milds as they could. One of the guys then yelled, "We've been here too long. Let's go, let's get the hell out of here." 3 of them were sprinting out the door while one was in front of me. While I was shaking with clenched hands spraying, I looked up and then his bandana fell down. I thought this was it for me, but it then just smiled at me and he joined his friends. At the very same time, a woman came inside to buy a soda. They yelled at her too, pointing the gun at her to give them her purse. The lady replied back with, "I'm not giving you my purse." And I thought for sure they would get aggressive instead. However, they seemed to just be worried about being there too long. They then ran out the door and scattered through the parking lot. I looked at the lady, then the glass door, and I could see her partner's truck sitting outside. I told her to go to her truck while I called the police. I've been locked the door. As soon as she was in the truck, I picked up the store's landline and I dialed 911 and ran to the stock room, and I walked that door as well. It told the 911 operator of all the details she needed, and after only a couple of minutes she said it was safe to go to the front door for the officers, and I did just that. I unlocked the door and I immediately removed my name tag and threw it in the trash. I felt like this was finally over and I was obviously quitting. He saw the woman customer that was confronted by the gunman just shaking, and she was rocking back and forth. I put my hand on her shoulder as she also gave her own statement to the police. I gave the officers my statement and I called my manager. She came to the store along with CSI investigators. I had to watch myself on tape at least 3 times with the investigators. At one point, a CSI guy paused the video while the thieves were surrounding the safe and their back was turned. And he asked me, "Mom, why didn't you run?" because I was afraid I'd be shot in the back. As Ed the man apologized, immediately realizing how traumatized I really was after the police left, I continued to converse with my manager as she tried to console me. She then called her manager because she had never been through anything like this. I actually heard upper management tell her, "Oh, she'll be all right. No need for me to get out of bed for this." I literally lost it, and it told her she was a piece of... I eventually went home, and around this time it's 4 in the morning. I race upstairs, and I kiss all my children on their foreheads. I then went to mine in my husband's bedroom, and I went into our bathroom to wash my face. I was thinking in my head that I didn't want to wake him up because he has another hour to sleep before shift for his job begins. I couldn't help but to break down after realizing I was alive, and that I was now at home splashing water on my face. My husband woke up to this, and asked in a slight panic, "What's wrong, babe? What's going on?" I broke down to my knees on my bathroom floor, and it then explained my entire nightmare night to him. He held me and consoled me. It stayed up until it was time to take my children to school. When I got back home, I called the company's HR. They were very cold towards me. I then decided to call a workers' compensation lawyer after discussing what happened to me on my third shift all by myself, as well as the HR being so cold towards me. He took my case. I discovered that the 4 guys that robbed me at gunpoint were all 6 years old. I don't know what punishment they ever received, but I do know that I got 1 year of unemployment checks as well as a settlement of $25,000. I also received the rapey for the PTSD. The now have it took about a year for me to be able to get to a gas station all on my own. It's been about 4 years since, and I'm doing okay now. That is as long as I have my 2 knives and Adasur with me. Music.